While we sleep, the guardians of the night take to the streets, having said goodbye to those they love. Each other knowing they may never say these words again, they face the evil that we run from. They dedicate their lives to those that would hate them because they wear the badge. They wear the badge not for the glory or recognition, but because they were born to honor the thin blue line. This is the LEO First Podcast. We'll talk to the men and women in law enforcement, those that have retired, and anyone who's impacted by law enforcement. We'll peel back the curtain, and you'll get the real stories. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Every law enforcement officer has a story to tell. Get ready to hear from the men and women who put their lives on the line every day for their communities and their country. Welcome to the LEO First Podcast. Now, here's your host, Michael Laidler.
Hey everybody, it's Michael Laidler, your host of the LEO First Podcast, and we are coming back to you for another amazing episode. It's been nice here in the state of Texas. The weather has been pretty good, and our guest is actually coming out the state of Florida. And without looking at the weather, I'm pretty sure it's probably nicer than it is right now, specifically in the area of a tropical storm. I don't know what it is about the month of September and tropical storms in the state of Texas, but it's like nonstop. It's like weekly. Now, by the time you all hear this episode, it'll probably be closer to October and November. But let's let you know right now, myself and our guests, we're safe and sound, because a lot of times we look at Facebook or we see all those little posts and all those little updates. So we are good right now, but it's also earlier in September, and we'll kind of see what happens throughout the next month or two. But needless to say, I am excited. I have someone that I've known off and on for the last nearly 20 years or so. And mostly. She's been extremely active in law enforcement. The cool part about it is where I started my career, which a lot of you know at this point. I started off as a Tallahassee police officer in Tallahassee, Florida, and she was at a partnering agency, Leon County Sheriff's Office. So literally, if anybody knows about that area, both agencies are right there. They work side by side on a lot of different projects, calls for service, because it's just pretty cool how that goes. But needless to say, that's going to be our guest, Rachel Keller. And I'm going to give you guys a quick description of what she has done, which once I looked at her LinkedIn, I realized it was actually a lot more than what I realized. But, when people are hard chargers and they're really thriving to get better, that's what happens. Your resume gets filled up, especially over nearly a 20-year period. So Rachel actually started in law enforcement back in 2006. She's been a reserve deputy. She's been a uniform patrol, special ops. She's been an SRO, which also means school resource officer. She's been a patrol sergeant, and also now she does special investigations. Some of the training she's been in is through FBI-LEEDA. And I don't know if you all have checked out FBI-LEEDA, but they do some amazing training throughout the states. She actually has one training left. So Mike Robinson or Jack Baptiste, if you're watching, she's almost at her trilogy. So she says she will get it. She's taken classes at Tallahassee State College. She's done field training, officer training. She's done all her FEMAs. She's done a lot of different trainings. If you guys want to look at every single training, just go to her LinkedIn. It's a lot easier than me telling each one. But probably the best training that she has that I see on here is that she's a Florida State Seminole. So for all my FSU fans and all the people that know how much I like the Seminoles, she is part of the family on that side. So with all that being said, and me trying to give a quick description and not trying to take all my time away from her, Rachel, tell us what you want to talk about today.
Mainly because it is heavy on my mind. I think I would like to talk about the work-life balance, like work-home life balance, or the juggling of family and work, and the struggle and the uniqueness that there is to that maybe non-law enforcement families don't necessarily experience. It's been heavy on my mind here recently, and kind of changes that I'm experiencing in my family, good changes, but still changes, and kind of how that has added a little bit of chaos to the schedule and the calendar that is now hidden in the back. But
it is hidden. Yes, we can't see it. Yep. So with that, so right before, like a lot of times what I do is I like to have conversations with people before the show, just kind of see what's
Mhm.
going on. You mentioned that I love that you talk about work-life balance because I think in law enforcement, we're starting to get more towards accepting that
Mhm.
as a reasonable expectation to be able to go
Mhm.
home to your family. Like back when you and I started back in the mid 2000s, it wasn't actually, it was kind of talked about, but we were still kind of in that prior mentality, especially with the other generations. Like, hey, you go home when we say you go home.
Yep.
You go home when the job is done, which the
Mhm.
job still needs to be done. But
Sure.
now we're realizing that when you retire or when you go home, if you haven't cultivated that relationship for your family,
Mhm.
then you're just going to be sitting there looking at walls without any love. So, with that all being said, with the work-life balance, I know, and you mentioned it, this ain't obviously this isn't private information because you posted it
Yeah,
on social media. You're going to actually inquire. I don't know the right word, but you're getting a blended family. I guess that's the
I
best way to
am.
say it.
I
Which
am.
which in law enforcement and life, it's reality. So
Yep.
when we're talking about balancing, like how does someone prepare that's looking at that to kind of go into that blended family, especially with that law enforcement background that's already going to take a lot on your plate?
Um, so I am very, very blessed that my fiance is also law enforcement. Shocker, I know. There's
Yeah.
stereotypes and we are living that stereotype. But no, I am blessed in that sense. There is a level of understanding, at least between him and I. He uh understands the position that I'm in currently. I'm on call 1 out of every 3 weeks. And that phone rings. It rang twice last night. It rang Sunday, and I went out Sunday. And so he is very, very supportive of my current position and what is required of me. And so it's kind of been nice in the sense of prior to him, I was having to figure it out on my own. I was a single mom to a teenager who can't drive, so that creates a whole nother issue. Um, and so now at least I have a little bit of like, hey, I'll go get her from practice since you've got to go to work. So that part of it's nice. But we are blending 2 kids. I have a 14-year-old, he has a 9-year-old. And at least from my house, my 14-year-old has been an only child. So we she is excited, albeit maybe a little cautiously excited about having a sibling. Um, but I think the biggest thing that he did was he actually sat her down before he proposed to me and asked her how she felt about it, and what it meant to him and what he kind of hoped would come out of it. And got her blessing before he ever asked me. So she felt included. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting practice, interesting process, I guess. We're juggling now 2 kids' sports schedules, which I've never had to do. I've just had to juggle my own, and my own is year round. I mean, she plays basketball year round and she runs track, and um, now we're adding football, soccer, and baseball for his son. So we're about to be a very busy, like, hey, where are you at tonight? Like, which kid are you taking to practice? And we'll figure it out. But it's going to be interesting.
It's crazy because when I hear you describing it, like my sister, for example, she has 3 kids and she's a single
Mm-hmm.
mom. Now she has support of her ex-husband and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but she talks to me about the just balancing 3 sports with kids. So
Yeah.
my nephews are 12, 14, and my niece is 7.
Mm-hmm.
So the 2 boys are heavily involved in basketball. And
Yeah.
given that age group, one is in 7th grade, the other one's in ninth grade. So
Mm-hmm.
we already know, and they go to 2 different schools. One goes to one public middle school, and then one goes to a public high school. So
Mm-hmm.
their games are never on the same days. Neither is
No,
their practice. So
no.
which it's funny when you say it with the 9 and a 14-year-old, the balancing of schedule is
Yep.
real. But you
Mm-hmm.
don't just have that going on. Then you still
No.
have that other factor of work. And
Yeah.
what for maybe people maybe starting off in law enforcement or people that
Sure.
don't understand it, what on call means is that you get called after your normal work hours, normal
Yep.
business hours. So if
Yep.
your normal hours for, like, let's say a banker is what they say, banker hours from like 9 to 3 or something like that,
Yeah.
or 9 to 4.
9 to 3, 8 to 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you look at those hours, you work your hours, but then if some incident happens of whatever nature that might
Mm-hmm.
be, you get called out. So
Yep.
even if you're at that sports game, for example, you
Doesn't
have to
matter.
have an extra layer. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're at it, even in the past, before you got with your fiance,
Mm-hmm.
how did you manage that time when it went like how did you, because obviously you're around, obviously you're
Yeah.
still on call by yourself, like how did you manage that time?
So I am 450 miles away from any family of my own. So grandparents aren't here, her aunts and uncles aren't here. Like it's her and I. That whole I came up here to go to FSU and never left thing. Yeah, they got me.
It almost got me too,
Um,
don't worry, it almost got me.
they got me. And so I am very grateful that I have made friends with other parents on the teams that she has played on. And when things like that happen, it's, hey, I'll get her home. I'll get her home. Um, and thankfully, Dublin, that's my 14-year-old, has grown up as a cop's kid. And so she has a level of understanding. And so it's hey, I've got to go to work. And she goes, okay, do you know when you're coming home? Nope, I'll let you know when I'm coming home. Okay. And she's old enough now that, if I get called out, I'm like, hey, I'll let you know when I'm headed home. And like one instance pops in my brain. I had been out pretty much worked all day. It carried over into a call out right at the end of the workday. It was like 10 o'clock at night. So I'd been at work from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And I was maybe 2 minutes from the house. I had texted her, said, hey, I'll be home in a minute. And the phone rang and they said, hey, you've got another call out. And I whipped a U-turn before I ever made it home and went back to the second call out of the night. And it was, hey, she was like, hey, I'm going to bed. I'll see you in the morning. And so, yeah, I mean, it's, you pack a bag, you throw your call out bag in your car and you have a contingency plan for if you get called out and you make it work. It's not always pretty. Sometimes it's chaotic, but you make it work.
So mentally, how do you get through all of this?
Um, well,
Because that's what people probably really want. I mean,
yeah,
people figure things
yeah.
out, but like mentally and psychologically, like how does that work? Because I'm not a
Um,
mom. I'm not a mom, and I don't have some of those. Like, I mean, my son,
yeah,
he lives a few hours away, but I've never been on call. Let me clarify. I've been on call, but I've never been in a situation where I'm going home to my kid that's with a friend
yep,
that I get there and I have to turn around and
yeah.
go right back out. So, like, how do you deal with that? Because that's a mental stress in itself.
Um, Mom guilt is real. And I am very blessed to have people in my circle who understand that, like, my entire career, I'm not willing to sacrifice one or the other. So I want to succeed in my career and I'm very goal driven, but I also want to be a very present, very involved parent. And so I'm not willing to let either of them slip. I'm just not. And so sometimes on, an instance like that, mom guilt kicks in and I'm like, what am I doing? Or, she's missing out and they're like, she's safe, she's happy, she's fed, she's going to bed. It's okay. Like you will still be here in the morning to take her to school. It's okay. And so I'm very, very blessed to have people in my circle that remind me of that when I need them to. And then I just make most of the time when I'm not on call, or, I'm off and I get to spend time with her. Thankfully, I work at an agency where, if something happens, my kid is accident prone. And so anytime she has hurt herself or whatever the case may be, it's a phone call of like, hey, I got to go get my kid. Like it's work time, but like I got to go. And they're like, okay, let me know if you need anything. So I'm very, very blessed in that sense. But yeah, I mean, it's a struggle. I'm not going to say it's always easy to mentally deal with like the mom guilt. Like mom guilt is a real thing. Especially with the daughter. So, you know, um, you learn to deal with it and you learn to vent when you can vent and you learn that some things you can't control and you do the best you got with what you got. Um, and unfortunately, sometimes I'm going to miss a basketball game or a practice or a track meet. Like I remember she placed in a track meet, the very first time she ran the 400 and I missed it. And I was so sad. Like I showed up, but like it was like right after. Like she had just gotten done running and I was so upset. And another mom's like, I took a video for you. I got it. And I was like,
Technology.
okay, that makes me feel better. But like I was sad. But it's part of the job and it won't always be like this. And I know that. So
And it's when you say it, it's and that's why I like people to realize is that in law enforcement, there's a lot of things you have to do because
yeah.
crime doesn't sleep. Like
No,
crime usually doesn't go on your schedule.
no.
We think that well, it can't be that bad. Sometimes it can be given the unit you're in, the
Yeah.
size of your department, the other resources you have. But if
Yep.
you're in a department that's popping or in a unit that's always on the go, then
Mhm.
sometimes those family moments can be missed. And
Yeah.
it's important for, like you said, like mothers, fathers, whoever, any family member that's taking care of the kid to understand that, hey, even if you'd say, okay, I'm gonna have to go to work, just make sure when you get home, you're all in.
hmm hmm Yeah.
And based on what you're saying, that's kind of what you do. Like, hey, I might have missed this 400
Yeah.
meter, but now we're going to go get ice cream, food.
Right.
We're going to talk
Right.
about it. I'm going to make you
hmm
excited. We're going to go
hmm
through all the steps because to me, I think kids understand that. I
hmm
think they appreciate it. But even in the beginning, you've had those conversations with you. Like you said, she's a cop's daughter. So
That's all
she's
she
kind of,
knows.
yeah, she's always known this
hmm
lifestyle. Doesn't mean that it's always the one we always want them to have, but it's where life is at and it's
Yep.
working. You've been in the
hmm
agency now for 18 years and you've been up there. Obviously, you've established a great life up there. You have your fiance, like you said.
hmm
Um, and now it's to the point to where, okay, I know what I need to do, especially as a parent. I also know what I need to do for my career because it is a
hmm
balancing act. So
Yeah.
when we're looking at all of this, how does your fiance play a role in like your stress level? And I hope he's watching so
Um,
you can tell him tomorrow. This will probably be around the 11-minute mark of the episode. So this is where he can figure out, okay, this is my strategies on how to get better tomorrow, which it sounds like he's a
um,
good guy. If he's talking
I
to
was
your
about to
daughter,
say I'm gonna be honest. I so we knew each other 9 years prior to us ever getting together, 8 years, 9 years. And he will tell anyone and everyone that he was scared of me. Which is hilarious because he is a two-time combat Marine Corps veteran, and so like shouldn't be scared. Everyone's like, you went to war, like you got shot overseas, like you're scared of her, and he's like, yeah, I was petrified of her. Um, and it was because, as he said, I had a air of me. I walked around with this like I don't need nobody attitude. Um, you know, I joke it's the independent I am woman, hear me roar, persona. Um, and I did. I very much self-contained my stress for the most part and didn't lean on anyone else for it. I just dealt. He came into the picture and we were built on friendship first. And so I can very honestly say like he is one of my best friends. And he has a innate ability to instantly know when something's off. Even if I tell him there's nothing wrong, which I tend to do. And then he looks at me and he's like, that's insulting. Like, I know you better than that. So you might as well just tell me. And he has a way of taking whatever it is that I'm stressing about and breaking it down to manageable terms for me. Um, I really don't have anything he could do better in sense of helping me with my stress and my career. That he does incredibly well. He is very much of the what do you need me to do in this moment? What do you need me to do? Like, do you need me to pick up the slack? Do you need me to just listen? Do you need a solution? Do you need to bounce ideas off? And we do. And that's the other plus of him being in the same line of work is I'm like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. How do I go about this?
right?
Or, this is what happened today. This is the case that popped up. Like, how do I push this investigation for my unit the way I want it to go or whatever, and it's nice because I can bounce it off of him. So I don't really have anything he can do better in that regard. He is quite good at it. Um, yeah, no, I don't have any critiques for him on that one.
See, I was actually setting you up because I wanted you to talk good about him because I already knew you were going to say positive things because
Yeah.
if
Mm-mm.
people missed it, early on, one of the things you highlighted that he did before even proposing was that he talked to your daughter. So for me, when I hear that, I'm like, there is a strategy and an understanding that he has, knowing how he knows who you are. He knows how important your daughter is in your life. So he doesn't want to go around that or circumvent that. I think sometimes in any relationship, if we don't really know the person we're trying to get engaged to, or we're trying to, whatever we're trying to, if we don't know that person, that's where you see some of the things start to crumble. And I knew based on what you were going to say, because him doing that to me, I was going to say that's kind of like a cheat code in a sense. It's like him doing that made it even better, because I'm sure he told you that afterwards.
He did.
But when he told you that, you were like, I love you even more now. Like you talked to her, and like you said, it ain't like he told you and asked for permission. He knew that that's what he had to do. It wasn't like you had to convince him or tell him, like, no, he just went. So what I'm going with all this is that it's good when we're looking at work-life balances and we have the right partners in place. Sometimes there's a lot of people, and you've heard it since 06.
Oh, I've had the wrong partner. So yes.
Yeah. We've said that they said don't get involved with people that's within the industry. And sometimes it's just I tell people don't shy away from it so much that it's almost kryptonite, but also don't run to it like it's the only thing there. Let life unfold for itself. Like you said, 9 years. It wasn't like after 9 days he was trying to get your number or trying to get with you, and it was kind of like and she's just his person. But it was like, okay, we see that we're compatible and we are very much alike. Now let's go from there. So that's kind of a good strategy. I had another guest on. She was on last year, Dina Campbell. She's an officer out at NYPD, and her husband works for NYPD as well. And she was explaining the benefits, because they have 3 kids, of having your spouse, because like you said, you could run things past them that if you have a civilian spouse that they may not understand. But it's all about, I think, because people are like, well, what should I do? They ask me, well, should I have a civilian spouse? Should I have a law enforcement? I said, whatever works for you.
Depends on the person.
Yeah. Because I said everything works for people. I had a captain on from Greensboro, and he was telling me how he tells his wife everything, civilian. He said that's the way she likes it, because if something happens, she doesn't want to have to go guess where he's at. She knows everybody that he's working for, who's working for him. She was like, she knows those details because she wants to be involved. So it really, I tell people, when you're looking at a significant other and you're trying to maintain your work-life balance, get someone that works for you. It doesn't matter. I don't look at their title, so to speak. Don't look at or run away from the title, whatever that might be, because you just never know who's gonna be the right person.
Yeah, we joke all the time that when we first got together, that, because we were like, how did this happen? And we're like, no one was more surprised than us. Because, like I said, I was like, he ignored me for 9 years, and he's like, I didn't ignore you. And I'm like, yeah, you basically did. I think we've agreed on 4.5, truthfully, that he ignored me. But, I mean, it came out of nowhere. And I, like I said, I am very, very grateful. Just because, like I said, I've watched, he took on a teenage girl, let's be completely honest, and at the beginning of this, I was like, teenage girls are like difficult in their own sense, right? And then you throw in teenage girls who have had, cards dealt to them that they didn't ask for. And I was like, she's hard. And like, I wouldn't blame you if you tucked tail and ran. Like, I wouldn't, I would get it. Like, totally get it, whatever. And he's like, why would I do that? Like, this is like, he looked at me like I had 7 heads, right? Like, why are you even bringing this up? Like, I'm not going anywhere. I fully understand that, like, it's you and her. And, it's been fun to watch their relationship kind of grow. It was kind of funny because, like, the first time that she said, love you too, like, just getting out of the car when he dropped her off at school, and he called me and he's like, she said she love you too. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, I didn't know what to say. And I was like, you didn't have to say anything, like, have a good day. But he was so, it was precious, because it was like, I realized the people that are watching this can't see him, but like, fully tatted Marine Corps vet, like, looks like he probably should be working narcotics somewhere, right?
They get the image then. They probably get the image.
Right. I'm trying, bearded, muscly, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And he got like, he's going to kill me for saying this, but he got emotional over like that step with her because it came hard earned. She is a cop's kid and she doesn't trust easily, and she's a teenager, and and so that came very hard earned, and it was awesome to see because like I kept telling him, I was like, no, she likes you, and he's like, I don't even think she like wants me around, and I was like, no, she does. Like, she's 14, she doesn't want anyone around, right? You're breathing her air. Like, who knows what she's mad about today? So to watch that has been very cool. It's been very, very cool to watch. So,
and once again, that helps out with the whole work-life balance.
oh yeah,
because now you have a partner that can get along with your child.
mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
when you're looking at, and it's the little things that we're not thinking about. And mind you, none of this has to do anything with law enforcement specifically. This can be anybody. So what I like to highlight about that whole scenario with him and your daughter is we're regular people going through regular life changes. Anybody that's in a blended family, you don't have to be in law enforcement to be in a blended family.
Sure.
And you're going through the same thing. So once again, as we humanize the badge, I like people to understand that we're regular people going through regular things.
Yep.
The only thing that we have is an extra layer of stress being in a uniform. But when we go home, that uniform has nothing to do with love. It has nothing to do with how people perceive our communication, because our people just want us to be there for them. And we're just Michael Laitler or Rachel Keller. That's all we are to them. Yeah, they know what we do, but they just want us to be a good person.
Right.
And like you said, what's going on with him and her, that amazing dynamic, that's the reality of what goes on as well. And then obviously that does play an impact to you, because if your daughter if your daughter had a legitimate reason not to like him, that would throw off your relationship. Now, like you said,
absolutely.
Some kids just don't like anybody. So sometimes you got to get over like you know what I mean? Like if you have a kid that it doesn't matter if you brought home Mother Teresa, they still didn't like them. Like that but you know your kid. So, but if if the person's personality is right and they're doing right, the kid will like them. Once the kid goes over that hill and likes them, it makes it different, because that's one more thing you don't have to worry about.
Absolutely.
You can take off your plate.
Yeah, she's, I know that she's happy and she's safe and she feels safe. More importantly, like, even if I know she's safe, like, she needs to feel comfortable and safe. And I remember, it's been a bit, but like, I got called out and they watched movies. Like, they watched movies. I was at work. They were having a great time at the house. Albeit they watched a scary movie, and he sent me a text and he's like, I'm really sorry. Like, she busted out Bible verses and like started reading Bible verses while the movie was playing because it scared her. And he's like, and now she's insisting on watching, like, I think she was watching Bluey. Like, she was watching like a little kid cartoon after the fact because it scared her. So whatever they watched scared her so bad. I think it was The Grudge, I think.
Ooh, yeah, that was.
And yep. And so he's like, really sorry, like, my bad. He's like, she said she wanted to watch scary movies and she said she was allowed. I'm like, no, she's allowed, but like, she hates them. I don't know why she insisted on watching them. And so he's like, she went to bed, and about every 10, 15 minutes, he's sitting on the couch in the living room and she go, hello, from her bedroom. And he's like, I'm still here. And she's like, okay. And like another 15 minutes will go by and she's like, hello. And he's like, still here. And she's like, just making sure I didn't get you. And it went on like the entire night. And he's like, I didn't even want to go to sleep because I was worried she was going to say hello and I wasn't going to answer and she was going to freak out. And like, yeah. So their relationship is fun to watch. And, his 9-year-old and I gang up on him constantly. So that's fun. His 9-year-old takes my side no matter what the discussion is. I could be completely wrong, and his 9-year-old is going to side with me over his dad. So it's yeah, I never really saw myself as a bonus parent. But I'm excited, and excited to, do boy sports, I guess. I don't know. I never did football, baseball, or soccer, so I'm kind of excited about that new experience. So,
the boy's only 9, so the sports can change a lot. Hey, the sports are going to probably change a lot over the next 3 years. He might add basketball in there. He might add other sports. He might take away some. Hopefully you get more indoor sports. My son, he only does basketball, and he started doing cross country this year, but he only does basketball. So we are very happy to be indoor parents.
Oh, absolutely. Track meets are the worst thing on the face of the planet, because you get out there at 7 a.m. and you're there all day into the evening, and your kid might run for 40 seconds. And it's terrible. And I hate it. And I show up because I will always show up for my child. But like, I show up with like my cooler and a tent and a chair and an umbrella and a blanket and like all sorts of crap. And then you sit there all day for her to run 40 seconds. If that.
And still got work to worry about after all that.
I know, right? And then I'm like, well, this is fun. We still have homework and house chores and great.
The realities of life.
I will continue to do it.
Mhm.
I will always continue to do it. And then throw in travel ball, because the girl plays travel ball during the summer from April till August.
Ooh.
So
that's a lot of weekend trips.
So about every other weekend, we are someplace other than where we live.
Gosh, man, this has been an amazing conversation. See, I'm happy you chose work-life balance. People don't realize. That's why I always tell people when you come on, you choose what we're going to talk about, because it's what's on your mind right now, and the importance of speaking on things. There's a lot of parents on here that I talk to, single moms, single dads, blended families, people that's been together for 20, 30 years. It's literally just a variety. And I know we're always seeking different styles of communication or other wins. We like to hear the success of people creating blended families and becoming boy moms or coming dad, or what is it called? Dad, what
girl dad.
Girl dad. So all the different things like we like to hear. So with all this being said, everything that you've done, especially great job on the work-life balance, seems like you're winning. At least in my perspective, you're winning.
Figuring it out.
Yeah. Hey, you're going in the right direction. I can tell you that you're not going in the opposite direction. We know we've all been in the opposite direction. So you're going in the right direction. So with all that being said, if somebody is looking to find you, how would they do that?
A couple of different ways. I am very much active on Facebook. My Facebook is my first and middle name, not my last name. I got into that habit when I was in school resource because my kids, my high school kids would try to find me. So it's Rachel Elizabeth on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn under Rachel Keller. If you need work stuff, my agency email is kellerr@leoncountyfl.gov. I guess that will change at some point to my new last name. I always said I was never changing my last name ever. I also said I was never getting married again. I've said that for 12 years. Someone made a liar out of me.
Yeah.
But then again, I made a liar out of him too, because he said he was never getting married again. So there's that. But right now that's my email. Or my work cell, which is 850-901-7887. Trying to think how else they can reach me. Sheriff's Office, Leon County Sheriff's Office. If you want to contact them, they can always put you in touch with me. Cannot hide from them if I try. I'm trying to think. I'm on Instagram. But my kid hates the name. It's Dublin's Mama 0402. So I'm on Instagram too. She's like, could you change it? I'm going to get kidnapped. I'm like, not from just your first name. So it's fine. She's like, you don't know that. There's only 2 of us in the state of Florida. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not sure what to tell you. So yeah, she hates it, but
those are a lot of ways. So, and trust me, when I push out the reels for this and stuff like that, a lot of people will see it on Instagram and stuff like that, Facebook, LinkedIn.
Yeah, you can tag me in it.
Yeah. So a lot of people will see that. So any final words?
Final words. You can successfully do both. I remember towards the beginning of my career being told that I couldn't do both, that being a mom and being successful at my job was pretty much next to impossible. And when I started, and you'll remember when you started, there weren't, at least at the sheriff's office, I think TPD had a few more, but there really weren't a whole lot of women for me to kind of look up to or model after. We had a handful, but there weren't many. I mean, for example, when I got pregnant with Dublin, I was the first female law enforcement officer at the sheriff's office pregnant in like 15 years. So they legitimately did not know what to do with me. I came in and I was like, hey, like, what's the process? Like, I can't work patrol, obviously. So like, what's the process? And they're like, we don't know. Go home until we figure it out. So I literally went home and then kept calling HR going like, hey, I can't burn my time. Like, can someone find me something to do? And so they found me something to do, but they didn't have a procedure because they hadn't needed one. So it was discouraging, right? To not have anyone to go, hey, like you're 20, shit, how old was I when I had her? 24? You know, you're nowhere near your family, you're working patrol, like this is doable, it's okay. Like, don't freak out. So I wish I had. And so I've kind of taken it upon myself for some of the younger females that we have hired to kind of take on as they call it, a big sister role. I'm not old enough to be their mom yet, but like have those conversations of like you can have both and it's okay. Um, and so yeah, I mean you can do both, but at the same time, you can't be expected to do it all. And so yes, you can be successful at both, but you've got to show yourself a little bit of grace. There may be dishes in the sink, right? There may be dishes in the sink,
Yeah.
or your laundry may be backed up because it was a really bad week at work and you were still trying to juggle the bad week at work with everything your family had going on. And it's okay. No one's going to die because your dishes in the sink or your laundry's a day or two behind. That's been a very hard lesson for me to learn because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And so I don't like when things are not the way that I think they are supposed to be. Um, but the older I've gotten and the more further along in my career I've gotten and my kids gotten older, and I will say Tyler has been a big help in this of like, it's okay. It's okay. We can grab pizza on the way home tonight because you're exhausted and you don't want to cook. Like, it's okay. Um, I got scolded the other night. I say scolded very, very lightly. The man doesn't scold me. Let's be completely honest. But like I came home from that call out on Sunday and realized I hadn't done our meal prep because I prep our food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the week. I
Mhm.
hadn't done it because I got called out at 11 something in the
Right. Yeah.
afternoon. So I didn't do it. And I was like, crap, I still got to food prep. So I came home from the call out at 11 o'clock at night, 11:30, and started food prep for the week because I was like, it has to get done. Like I need the food, he needs food. So I did food prep at midnight till I got done. And then went to bed and he's like, why? We could have gotten lunch the next day. Like it would have been okay. And I was like, well, no, because the next day, Dublin had basketball for 3 hours and like after school and there
Yeah.
wasn't going to be time. And like, I just figured I might as well just do it now. Um, so yeah, you can do both, but show yourself some grace. Get really good at keeping a schedule. I'm a little bit OCD about my color coded calendar because that's how I run. That's
Yeah.
how I run work and
Yeah.
the house and the family, and that's how I keep track of everything. Um, but yeah, that's probably my final thought. You can do both. Just show yourself some grace while you do it.
Yeah. And it's important for people to know that you can do both because
Mhm.
sometimes, like you said, when you were first pregnant with Dublin, it was scary on so many different levels. It
Oh
was,
yeah.
I mean, just having a kid, just being pregnant is
Oh.
scary in itself. But
Mhm.
then now you go to work and they're like, what are we doing with you? So
Yeah.
sometimes people are just especially in law enforcement. I mean, and it is a male dominated
Mhm.
uh industry, and it
Yeah.
will be until the dawn. I know there's different initiatives out there like
Sure.
30 by 30, and people, if you don't know what that is, I've talked about it on other podcasts, but it's getting 30% of the workforce women by 2030. But that should tell you we're just trying to get 30% of the other 70% is still men. So
Yep.
we're not
Yep.
taking away that number.
Yep.
We're just like,
Yep.
how can we increase that on that? And so it needs to say we didn't have that initiative in late 2000s, in the 20 teens, and we just got, I think
Mhm.
they just started doing that initiative like 3 or 4 years ago. So
Mhm.
all that to say is that, yeah, you can do both. Obviously, you have to
Mhm.
have a plan in place
Mhm.
and you
And a
have to
backup
be,
plan to that
yeah,
plan, and
yeah,
probably a backup to the backup.
correct. Correct. Because things
Yeah.
happen. I mean,
Mhm.
we know COVID, all the other stuff that happens.
Yeah.
But it's important for people to know that you can do both. And it's good to establish relationships, which I know you mentioned earlier. And I don't just mean with your fiance,
Yeah.
but with the people around you, friends,
Yeah.
because your family was over 400 miles away.
Yeah.
And sometimes people are like, well, how am I going to do it? Well, it does take a tribe to raise a kid. But
100%.
it takes a tribe to raise ourselves as
Yeah.
adults. I'm
Absolutely.
adding the kid. I'm talking about just being a regular person takes more than
Yeah.
one. Hey, you
Yeah.
can't
How
do
do
it
I
alone.
adult?
Did
Yeah.
I got an adult today?
Right.
Well,
Right.
yeah.
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 So no, that was good. I think people are going to find this valuable. And if you are looking for Rachel, like she said, she gave you a number of ways to reach out to her,
Mhm.
different social media platforms, as well as direct emails, phone number. So don't be shy. And if you're wondering how you're going to handle this balance, or you're struggling, or you're even struggling, there's people out there that are willing to talk to you. There's people out there willing to help you understand that you're not alone. And I know that's been a phrase and a theme that I've been hearing a lot from my last couple of guests. Obviously, September being Suicide Prevention Month, that might be one of the reasons that I'm hearing it as much. But even if we take away the month of September, every day of the 365 days, let's still leap year, we have someone there that's willing to help us. And you can do both, but you don't have to do it on your own, and reach out to people. I always tell you all that are listening, and if you're watching any of the reels, take the guests that I have on here, and that's one more person you have in your toolbox. Whether you're listening from a law enforcement perspective, you're listening from a family perspective, if you're listening from the community's perspective, there's good law enforcement officers out there that are going through life. And we can only tell you what works for us, but we can at least tell you something that's working. And
we're not experts. I think a lot of it is trial and error, and I can tell you what didn't work. And I say it from an experience of like, oh, that was a hot mess. Like that did not work. And so I don't claim to be an expert. I just know kind of what has worked for me. And it, in all different phases of my life, from, single mom of a 2-year-old on call for traffic homicide to, single mom with sole custody of a middle schooler and newly promoted and going, oh crap, what do I do? To my current phase of life of blending, 2 families and gaining a bonus son and a husband. And so, yeah, I mean, it's I can say I've lived a couple different phases, and I'm sure I will live a few more, to be completely honest, as my career changes and my kid changes, and she goes off to college, which she reminds me of about every other day. We're going to get to driving. We're going to get to driving first. But, not an expert by any means, but very much willing to say, hey, like, this is what worked and this is what didn't. So maybe it can save someone from the what didn't work, because that's stressful.
Yeah, just not knowing. So folks, reach out. You have Rachel Keller on your side. You always have me on your side. But once again, thank you all for listening and tuning in. If you haven't had a chance, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. That's always a plus. Even if it's your first time hearing it, you can. I have it on so many different platforms. I have it on YouTube Music. I have it on regular YouTube. I have it on Spotify. I have it on Apple Podcasts. So no matter what kind of phone you have or where you're streaming from, you can find this podcast. Shoot, I mean, I even stream it from the company Lipsum itself. So there's a lot of platforms. So yeah, it's on that. Whatever people can think of, it's there. So regardless, if you haven't, make sure you subscribe, because we're always having great guests on like Rachel, because we're always trying to provide information that works so you don't have to go through it by yourself. So folks, thank you again. If you have anything, reach out. If not, enjoy the rest of your day and be safe.
You've been listening to the LEO First Podcast. Michael has been in law enforcement since 2005. He's worked for 3 law enforcement agencies in 3 different states. He's a professional speaker who travels the country teaching about leadership development and self-awareness. And he's the author of a book called Greatness Beyond the Badge: The 3 Key Principles for Self-Awareness. It's Michael's passion to bring law enforcement members' stories to the front, so you get the real and raw take. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Michael on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Michael Laidler, on Twitter at Michael A. Laidler, on Facebook at Michael Laidler Leadership. Send an email to michael@michaellaidler.com and hit the website at michaellaidler.com. See you next time on the LEO First Podcast.